What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com, DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me at your next event. And you can sing for me. Yeah, I do karaoke shows too. Weddings and parties and corporate events and all that kind of stuff. All the usual stuff you'd want some good music playing at. You know, I conform to you. I become who you want me to be. I'll play the music you want me to play. I'll be the entertainer that you want me to be. I conform to you. Speaking of you, if you would like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. But for today, let's learn together on What Makes You Smarter. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Sunday, April 5th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, fatalities climb as U.S. braces for coronavirus peaks in some cities. The United States reported 1,344 deaths from the novel COVID-19 coronavirus Saturday, the country's highest number of fatalities in one day since the outbreak began. There are now more than 300,000 confirmed infections nationwide. In his daily White House briefing Saturday, President Trump warned the next couple of weeks would only get more difficult. Quote, "There will be a lot of death, unfortunately," end quote, he said. Dr. Deborah Birx, the White House coronavirus response coordinator, said the coming weeks were crucial in the fight against the pandemic, urging Americans to adhere to social distancing guidelines. She added that modeling shows metro areas like New York, Detroit, and New Orleans will likely reach the peak of their outbreaks in the next 6 or 7 days. This is according to CNN and the Wall Street Journal. Number 2, coronavirus cases, deaths begin to slow in European countries. Italy, the hardest hit country in Europe, has begun to eye the next phase of its battle against the novel coronavirus pandemic, now that the number of daily new cases and deaths has begun to level off. The government will reportedly propose a 5-point plan to slowly reopen the lockdown country. Social distancing policies will likely remain in place as Italy aims to massively increase testing. Coronavirus-focused hospitals and an app to track cases and provide remote access to medical care have also been discussed. Spain, meanwhile, reported 674 deaths in the previous 24 hours Sunday, the third consecutive day in which the daily rate dropped, and the lowest number of daily fatalities in 10 days. Germany saw its third straight day in which the number of new infections declined, though the number of deaths increased. This is according to Deutsche Welle and Reuters. Number 3, CDC begins antibody testing. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed Saturday it has been conducting antibody tests to determine the true number of people infected with the novel COVID-19 coronavirus, including those who never developed symptoms. Unlike normal diagnostic tests, the antibody test can detect if a person has recovered from an earlier infection. If so, there's a chance they've built up some protection, which could help inform future responses to the virus, though it's not yet confirmed if antibodies ensure immunity. The CDC is planning 3 different studies related to the tests. One will look at blood samples from people who were never diagnosed with COVID-19 but live in hot spots. The agency will also conduct a national survey using samples from different parts of the country. The third study will consider special populations like healthcare workers. This is according to the New York Times and Stat News. Number 4, report. Sanders' aides encourage him to drop out. Senator Bernie Sanders, independent Vermont, has reportedly been encouraged by a small group of his top aides and allies, including his campaign manager, Faiz Shakir, and Representative Pramila Jayapal, Democrat, Washington, to consider dropping out of the Democratic presidential primary, as it looks more likely his competitor, former Vice President Joe Biden, will emerge as the nominee. Those who support suspending the campaign reportedly believe if he exits on good terms with Biden, he'll have more leverage agenda-wise over the long haul. Not everyone involved with the campaign agrees with the assessment, and Sanders has not made a final decision. But one source with knowledge of the situation told the Washington Post he's warming to the idea of bowing out. This is according to the Washington Post and Politico. Number 5, Trump says he's open to oil tariffs. President Trump on Saturday said he's open to slapping tariffs on oil imports to protect, quote, thousands and tens of thousands of energy workers and our companies that produce all these jobs, end quote. It was a change of tune for Trump, who suggested Friday he wouldn't target Russia and Saudi Arabia with tariffs after tensions escalated between the two over the collapse in oil prices brought on by the novel COVID-19 coronavirus. Russia has blamed Saudi Arabia for exacerbating the problem. Despite Trump's tariff threats, he said he still expects Moscow and Riyadh to come to an agreement and halt declining prices, though others are growing more pessimistic after an OPEC meeting scheduled for Monday was pushed to Thursday to allow more time for negotiations. Oil prices are expected to, quote, crater, end quote, next week because of the delay. This is according to Bloomberg and CNBC. Number 6, cruise ship carrying passengers infected with coronavirus docks in Miami. The Coral Princess cruise ship, which has been searching for a port for weeks, docked Saturday in Miami, Florida, since the cruise began in Chile on March 5th. 2 passengers have died and 12 others remain ill from the novel COVID-19 coronavirus. At least one person was reportedly rushed off the ship and taken to a hospital in an ambulance. More than 900 guests and 840 crew members have been determined healthy enough to fly home, and they will reportedly begin disembarking Sunday. But the process is expected to take several days because flights out of Miami are limited. This is according to The Guardian and CNN. Number 7, Trump tells league commissioners he's hopeful sports can return by late summer. President Trump held a conference call with many commissioners of the United States major sports leagues Saturday to discuss their futures amid the novel COVID-19 coronavirus. He's reportedly said he's hopeful the NFL will begin its season as planned in September. As for other sports, he said he hopes to have fans back in stadiums and arenas by late summer. Quote, they've got to get back, end quote, Trump tweeted after the meeting. The leagues, though, will reportedly continue to rely on advice from medical experts and will adhere to restrictions put in place by local and state authorities. So a time frame for returning to action remains unclear. This is according to USA Today and CBS Sports. Number 8, former Saints kicker dies of coronavirus. Former New Orleans Saints kicker Tom Dempsey died Saturday from complications due to the novel COVID-19 coronavirus, his family said. He was 73. Dempsey reportedly contracted the virus in March during an outbreak at the Lambeth House retirement home in New Orleans. At least 14 other patients have died from the disease there. Dempsey was best known for kicking a record-setting, game-winning 63-yard field goal for the Saints in a game against the Detroit Lions in 1970, beating the previous record by 7 yards. The record remained in place until 2013 when the Denver Broncos' Matt Prater hit a 64-yarder. Dempsey is survived by his wife, children, and grandchildren. This is according to NOLA.com and the New Orleans Saints. Number 9, Louis C.K. releases first special since 2017. Comedian Louis C.K. released a surprise new comedy special titled Sincerely Louis C.K. on Saturday. It's available for streaming on his official website for $7.99. The controversial comic acknowledged the timing of the release amid the novel coronavirus pandemic, saying it's available for those, quote, who need to laugh, end quote, during the period of quarantine and social distancing. CK has largely remained out of the spotlight since 2017 after allegations of sexual misconduct against him began to surface. He released a special that year in which he confessed to the accusations. The new special was directed by CK himself at the Warner Theater in Washington, D.C. before the pandemic began. This is according to the New York Times and Deadline. Number 10, Bryant Duncan Garnett headline 2020 Basketball Hall of Fame class. NBA legends Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and the late Kobe Bryant were officially selected Saturday to be enshrined in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. They'll be inducted in March. Bryant will enter posthumously after he was killed in the helicopter crash in California in January, along with his daughter and 7 others. His wife, Vanessa Bryant, said the announcement was the, quote, peak, end quote, of the Los Angeles Lakers' great's NBA career. The class also includes WNBA star Tamika Catchings, women's college coaches Kim Mulkey of Baylor University and Barbara Stevens of Bentley University, and former men's college coach Eddie Sutton. Former Houston's Rocket head coach and player Rudy Tomjanovich rounds out the group. This is according to The Week and ESPN. That's 10 things you need to know today for Sunday, April 5th, 2020. This has been What Makes You Smarter. If you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for me. It's Keys Dan, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here. If you like what you hear, I encourage you to follow What Makes You Smarter on social media. Find it on Facebook at What Makes You Smarter, Instagram at What Makes You Smarter, Twitter at SmarterWhat, and YouTube. Username Keys Dan. Leave What Makes You Smarter podcast a review and subscribe. Listen to What Makes You Smarter podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. My personal favorite, learn with me on my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Call 501-470-6386 and leave a message to set up a time for What Makes You Famous. Support What Makes You Smarter podcast using the PayPal, paypal.me/KeysDan. Email info@radiowhat.com. What Makes You Smarter is a production of Keys Dan Enterprises Incorporated at keysdan.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for